listening to the Joyous Justice Podcast,
a weekly show hosted by April Baskin with Tracy Guy Decker.
In a complex world in which systemic oppression conditions us to deny others and our own humanity, let's dedicate ourselves to the pursuit and embodiment of wholeness, love, and thriving in the world and in our own lives. It's time to heal and flourish our way to a more joyously just future. Okay, so I am tired, but also still excited to try to re-record another live taping, recording, IG live initially, and then perhaps convert it into the next Joyous Justice Podcast, which I think will be our 135th podcast. Asan is joining me here for a moment. Hi, Asan. So I wanted to come on and do a live recording of the podcast on Instagram and share with you some insights that I have. I've taken a break for about a month-ish from the podcast, not precisely planned, but I'm leaning more deeply into belonging to myself first and foremost, and had a lot of travel over the last month, did my second to last Kohenet retreat in New York. And last week, that was at the end of April, took a vacation, which I already spoke about that. And then more recently, just did a trauma healing leaders retreat for Jewish trauma healing leaders in a community I'm a part of. That was an international conference that happens every 4 years, as a friend of mine said, as Jen said, like the Olympics. And just came back from that. So I'm back, and I wanted to try to start recording these podcasts here on Instagram and see how that goes, possibly on other platforms. And here's the insight that I wanted to share with y'all that I just recently had this breakthrough around work I've been engaging in and exploring over the past few years. And one of the things that I've grappled with and been trying to navigate in recent years is the fact that I really feel like there's not so many places where I can express and engage my the power and breadth of my expertise and leadership in the Jewish community, but not exclusively in the Jewish community, but also primarily in the Jewish community. And the big sort of, but also not so obvious epiphany that I had the other day about this is that the position that I had up until a few years ago, so for about 10 or 15 years. So when I'm saying position, I don't mean a specific job, but I just mean more of like generally feeling like there was a place for me within the Jewish community. I recently remembered sort of the obvious that that position wasn't there when I started my career. It wasn't given to me. I, in collaboration with other movement leaders and organizers, created it over a matter of years. And also that I created it and co-created it with other partners within the Jewish community, and that it appears in ways that are similar and different that I've reached a point of evolution, of knowledge, of expertise that that needs to happen again. And the reason why this is such a big epiphany, or why it didn't occur to me before, is because I thought when I did this originally in my mid and late 20s, that was sort of a final intervention, that I'd successfully created a sustainable and meaningful space for myself within the Jewish communal milieu. And what I came to realize in the last few days or so is that, I don't think it's a coincidence that this insight came to me after 5 days of an intensive trauma healing workshop with other Jewish leaders, that I realized that I need to do it again, that there isn't a space for me right now, but also, oh yeah, but I've been here before, and I co-created a space for myself at the level of inclusion that I thought I and other folks deserved. And it's time for me to do that again. And now what's interesting to me about that is that I don't just want to repeat the pathway I took before, which was to do a lot of work. A lot of work and engage at times, and not intentionally, but at times in sort of self-sacrificial organizing. And during that time, I did a lot of work for free. And I really stand by and appreciate all that I did during that time. And now I'm in a different season of my life. And I also know so much more, not just about the Jewish community, social justice, collective liberation, decolonization, but also about what sustainable, joyous leadership looks like, what embodying that looks like, and what feminist, anti-racist, racially just leadership, what I want that to look like for me, how I want to model that. And so I'm excited about that challenge to really live into all the lessons I've learned and pilot and try on different strategies based upon that knowledge and applying that in real time in the context of the current terrain. But the cool thing and the cool announcement is I've been holding back a lot of knowledge and insight and analysis because it just felt like there wasn't a ton of attention for it in meaningful ways, but there is some attention for it. And like I coach my clients in at times for certain things, whether it's like social change sometimes we really need there to be massive change. And at other times, particularly when we're beginning something or if we're looking for certain things in our career, we don't need the whole world to align with our values. We just need a few folks, or at times even one employer or one partner to meet us where we are, at least as a starting point. And so I'm remembering that right now, that it doesn't have to be that there is this cushy, spacious spot for me within Jewish life or in the world at large. It's more that I can show up in my fullness and share the brilliance and analysis that I have and I want to share, and see where there are points of meeting and have fun with that and engage in some of my most beloved and cherished, like bringing up some cherished memories and applying them in similar and new ways around collective organizing and co-creation and leveraged collective action, in addition to specifically carving out my own space that it's high time that I do. And it's actually really perfect timing. It's been a few years that I've been trying to figure this out. And it's not like I was sitting around doing nothing during those few years. I'm approaching in May, in August, I will become ordained as a Jewish priestess. And I specifically chose the Kohenet Institute to be the Jewish portal through which I could do the most profound integration work around the different facets of my identity. And as someone who'd been stewarding and championing belonging in the Jewish community for so long, and who continues to evolve myself, it's not like that's a static thing. There are greater depths of it. And increasingly over the past several years, I've started to increasingly want that for myself, and not simply have some parts of myself that were kind of in the wings because of oppression or because of less resourcing. So I came to the Kohenet Institute, and I'm sharing all of this, not just to share of myself, although that has value in and of itself, but I'm sharing this because I suspect that I am not alone in this, that there might be, for folks who are listening now live or who might be catching the replay later or listening to this when we publish it through our podcast portal, that whether it's in a massive way or in a more subtle stream of your living, that there might be some place in your life where it feels like it's not big enough for the wholeness of who you are. And so I just want to share and model that I'm someone right now who has been for several years feeling like I'd grown to a point where there wasn't enough spaciousness in beloved communities and beloved spaces I'm a part of for me to be my full self. But I'm glad I remembered that that was originally kind of how it was at the beginning of my career anyway. And I know a thing or two about how to create more spaciousness and how to shift and expand the collective consciousness. And it seems, not that I want to take it on all by myself, but in the ways that I can contribute to that, it looks like that gets to be a part of my task list now. And for me, as I mentioned earlier in this live, I get to be wisely discerning and deeply self-loving around how I want to take on those tasks and how I can also be incredibly strategic and really choose leveraged actions that create more spaciousness for myself and folks who have similar and different identities for me who would really benefit from there being more oxygen and spaciousness within the Jewish communal experience to share the truth of our experience, to share the depth of our analysis and commitment and devotion to our community and to the various commitments and intersectionalities that we embody in our living and in our leadership. So I'm excited for what's ahead around this. Maybe I can share a little bit, slightly more specifically what I'm thinking about here and what's on my mind about this, which is that whether it's around the marginalized group identity Jewish conflict circus, often it's the Black Jewish conflict circus, sometimes it's the LGBTQ plus or environmental Jewish conflict, environmental activist conflict circus, but there's patterns of these convergence moments that occur, and I have a ton of thought leadership around this that I want to share. I think that there is confusion in our community. And so some of the things that I want to share are both about the Jewish community, and some of them are also beyond the Jewish community. Like I was talking with a couple peer counselors of mine the other day about, I really want to do a talk or start sharing some of my thought leadership about the concept of enoughness and how I do think it's valuable, but I also think at times, and it's like a good intermediary step, but I think it's also not enough. Paradoxically, like I think actually most of us are more than enough. I think we're actually sacred and brilliant and wonderful and miraculous and phenomenal. And I want more room and space and support around us lifting that up about each other. So there's just lots of different things that I was waiting to kind of have a home because I'd made a home for myself before. And I spent the last few years taking time to pursue ordination as a Kohenet, as a Hebrew priestess, specifically because the Kohenet Hebrew Priestess Institute felt like not the only, but one of the only, and certainly the only that worked in the context of the kind of culture and the arc of the ordination journey, worked really well with my timeline, my leadership style, the places where I was becoming. But it was one of only a very small handful of Jewish institutional spaces that felt truly and completely, maybe the only one, but truly and completely safe for me to bring the fullness of my identity and have that be deeply held and be safe and included, and that I could do my afro-indigenous and mystical and spiritual coming home work and evolution and growth, and have that be nurtured and also be seen as intricately woven and a part of, woven into and with and a part of my Jewish identity and my ongoing Jewish leadership. And during this journey, as I've been doing all of this work, I started to get the sense that maybe I needed to take my work elsewhere, not to leave the Jewish community, but kind of expand beyond it. And I still want to expand more, but also I'm realizing also part of my work is to also expand the collective consciousness in collaboration with fellow movement leaders and other wonderful minds to continue to expand the collective consciousness of the Jewish community, because I think it's gotten kind of stagnant, and understandably so, the whole world. I think a lot of things have gotten stagnant during the COVID pandemic, the COVID panini. And we are still navigating that. No question about that. And there's a lot on the line, and some of us have started to have more spaciousness. And if we're going to be doing that, I want to be there lovingly to be like, now that we have some more of this spaciousness, let's put some attention on how we can strengthen our attention and our capacity to be as courageous as we can be, and to look at and to together continue to steadily, as we're ready and as we feel safe and or willing to stretch, look and face the unfaceable. Look at and face some of the unfaceable material that a lot of us choose to ignore, that unfaceable material. But as I've taught in some of my live workshops, and I'll continue to be teaching more, it's a misnomer that time heals all wounds. Time doesn't heal all wounds. Time in and of itself is actually benign, a social construct. It heals nothing. And the reason why we think this, besides the fact that we hear it said in movies and we've heard some of our most beloved elders say it, is because at times some of the things that happen within time can create healing. But that's a huge misnomer in our society. The time heals all wounds. Time actually in and of itself heals nothing. Healing heals all wounds, or healing can heal all wounds. And yet in the Jewish community, and also in other parts of the world, in the nonprofit field, in our social justice movements, we operate as though consciously and often just subconsciously, based upon conditioning that we've received in society at large, that we can just act like these sources of pain in our living, or the difficult things to look at, that continuing to avoid looking at them is going to help us get through. But I mean, look around. I don't know about you, but I don't think that's really working. And so through my lives, through my different trainings, through the opportunities I offer, I want to offer several different alternatives where we can learn together where I can teach some of multiple strategies we can use to look at and face some of the unfaceable in strategic, measured, responsible ways. And not just look at it and perseverate on it, but actually look at it in a way and engage in embodied practice in ways that help us heal and help us regain capacity for greater insight and capacity to navigate more complex terrain. And I'm ready to start talking about this more now that I've realized that I've been waiting for a space to be made and forgetting that I previously co-created that space. And so I'm up for now, strategically, in partnership with a number of kindred spirits, co-creating that space, those spaces for me and for others. Because the other thing is that it's not like I haven't been endeavoring to continue to create additional spaces for greater, broader, more bold and courageous consciousness, but it was really triggering, and now it's at the point where I'm kind of getting excited about it. But over the past few years that I've seen now, and at first it was just once, but now it's twice in the past 2-ish or so years, where initiatives that I designed to serve either explicitly Jewish leaders of color, or Jews of color, and or Jews with marginalized identities, that I designed explicitly to be deeply liberatory and profoundly, unquestionably empowering to the folks for whom the program was designed, that in both cases of programs that I either created or co-created, after I left, the word I would use to describe it is declawed, is that the institutions where I created those programs, they declawed the programs. They took out, in one way or another, elements that were some of the pieces that made the program most empowering. So in one instance, they shifted a program, a fellowship I created, where I designed it so that Jews of color and Jews with other marginalized identities would be given an opportunity to engage in radical imagination. And then my team, or the team that, or the leader who replaced me, would then work with those leaders and also other parts of this broader network to find initiatives that were already similarly aligned and to help them actualize that vision, right? And instead they took out that entire component and placed those leaders in apprentice service roles, I believe for free, working with institutions in that network, helping them with having them in like a helper role, which is a completely different situation. And in another scenario, though actually I think I've been in conversation with them and they've since made some adjustments, which just warms my heart, is that I designed another program to empower Jews of color to deeply nourish and support them and engage in equity measures. And after I left, instead of continuing what was happening, which they did do, they also removed that offering to some of the people for whom the program was designed and put them into a leadership role, which in some ways there's some benefit to that, but also to me that's highly problematic because everyone who they placed in that leadership role, I'm not necessarily opposed to them being in that leadership role, but they still should have also received the mentorship and profound support, because all of those folks really are deserving of it, especially in a broader network where senior executives in that network are given resourcing around coaching. So certainly Jews of color who aren't in a senior executive role, for darn sure, I don't know if it's safe, is it safe for me to swear on Instagram? I'm not sure. For darn sure should also continue to receive the highest levels of mentorship, coaching, and support. So because I'm seeing this pattern happening, and I've continued to engage in my own trauma healing. I've also through the Kohenet Institute engaged in deep and profound afro-indigenous coming home work woven into my ongoing Jewish spiritual leadership development. I'm now in a place of greater wholeness where I feel ready to continue in a new, revised, hopefully more liberatory and creative way than just like brute work, which is what I did in my 20s, a lot of work, and I eventually burned out. But to say, we all deserve better here, and let's start getting creative about this. And I have different things that I want to teach and share through programs, through free opportunities, but let's continue to expand the collective consciousness of our community and of the broader communities we are a part of, because a lot is at stake. It's not like we're living in Gan Eden. It's not like we're living in the Garden of Eden or we've achieved collective liberation. I would love to just be chilling and having fun. And luckily for me, this is a labor of love. So in its own complex way, this also brings me meaning and joy, right? Otherwise I wouldn't do it. But I'm ready to be putting out calls for us to raise the bar, and specifically invitations for leaders who are interested, who have similar inclinations and similar desires and haven't been able to find places or coaches or mentors who have the knowledge and also the commitment to say, yeah, like let's raise the bar. There's so much more that's possible and a lot is at stake. So let's take time to learn how to efficiently strengthen our leadership to address and circumvent different barriers that are chronically showing up. How do we nip these things in the bud? How do we circumvent them? How do we dissolve them entirely? These are all tools that I've gained in my toolkit and that for various reasons I've been afraid to share, but I'm not afraid to share anymore. And I'm not going to waste my time. I'll still be looking out for if there are spaces and places where folks are truly ready for this in our community and beyond, because I think they're out there. And the only way I'm going to really find them is if I start to show up and let y'all know what I'm looking for. And at times, often, as has often been the case in my career, it's not just me finding them, it's actually putting out there my knowledge and saying what's what from my analysis and perspective, and hopefully finding resonance and also engaging in sacred, holy debate at times, which I'm really into, not from triggered trauma-based debate, but like, like you're saying this and this resonates, but like, how about this? Like, I am here for that classic, not exclusively, but in part very Jewish dynamic of engaging in chavruta together around a variety of different themes, and just not accepting mediocrity. Yeah, so let's get started. I'm excited to engage mindfully, creatively, powerfully, and with wise discernment in creating a space for myself, and also putting myself out there so that if there are spaces and places where my expertise and knowledge is desired and can be leveraged, folks know that they can call on me. So I think that's it for now. Thank you for tuning in. If you catch this replay later, please feel free to write hashtag replay. If you have any questions or insights, I would love to hear them. And I look forward to being in touch. Part of the reason, I forgot to mention this, I mentioned this in the other recording when the sound was horrible, so I'm re-recording the whole episode. It's both a similar and also totally different episode because I base it on the energy of the people who are in the space. One of the things that I said is that I want to practice saying, or I want to try on pilot, that's the P word I wanted, pilot, initially recording some of my podcast episodes on Instagram and or on other platforms, because I often want to be in dialogue with people. Like, the whole reason why I'm doing the podcast is for you. It's for the person listening in. Like, I really don't need to hear myself talk. I'd rather be like getting a massage or reading or learning or doing any number of things. And so at times I think of things to say, and I also really want to know if this would resonate or what's happening and up for people. So I think, it's all just one big experiment, but I think I want to start showing up more live and building a bit more of an active real-time community here so that we can be in collective conversation, and I can then tailor my knowledge to what's coming up for you and y'all in around the thinking that I have to further tailor it so that it's relevant, and also so that I can hear and see how it's landing in real time and or in the replays, because I want to be of service. And there's a lot of need out there, and I've spent a lot of time learning a lot of stuff and in a lot of different nuanced intercultural ways, and I'm excited to be in conversation around it. So I think that's it for now. Thanks for tuning in. Especially shout out to Chesed. Sova ritual, love that. If I'm not already following you, hopefully I will. And thank you to those who are listening to this whenever you are listening. I had a nice break, but I'm eager to dive back in and get rolling with some of these additional tweaks. Maybe I'll figure out and land on a regular live time so that folks, we can start to build a bit of a live in real time community. Oh, heart back at you. So now and or on the replay, feel free to share any thoughts that you have. I truly would love to hear it. And my core leadership style, sometimes I question it, but I've been coming back to it a lot lately, is and I learned this from Erica Brown in her book on Jewish leadership. She had a whole section on shepherd leadership, and I hadn't heard of that before, but as I read it, I was like, yo, that's my leadership. Like, I'm really big into leadership, and I also studied sociology, and I don't lead just to lead, I lead to be of service to the people for who I'm leading in some sort of way. And so I really prefer to hear where my people, whether that's my Jewish people, my brown people, my Black people, my come from marginalized identities, my courageous, badass, warrior heart people. Like, I have a lot of different peoples, and I'm a projector. I don't know if anyone knows much about human design, but I'm a projector, and something that I spent some time reflecting on in my Kohenet journey is the fact that I have some things that are really specific about me, but a lot of my consciousness and my being is pretty neutral and open. And I do have strong opinions about the things that really matter, but around a lot of things, I'm like, what do y'all want? What would be helpful? And where would my guidance and my mentorship and my perspective in conversations be helpful? And I'm super happy to be of service. It's my life's work. So this is the first, or take two, of the first of more to come. Perhaps this will be episode, I think we're at 135 or 136 of the Joyous Justice Podcast. Thanks to my team member who will be editing it. And more to come. Look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for tuning in, whether you're catching this in real time or the replay. I really appreciate and being in community with you. It is a gift, and I'm excited to see what we could do together. I'm starting to enter a season where I want to focus on ease and fun, and also lovingly and strategically effing shit up, effing stuff up in like a good way, and like kind of like a mystical, spiritual, like fun, like kind of queering, also kind of the fool. I want to start to make some holy, sacred, strategic noise together, and not noise just to make noise, but I'm seeing complacency in places where I think it's pretty toxic. Like rest is important, but when we start to move into complacency around various things that matter, I think some holy stretching really has its purpose and its place. So I'm excited to do that with you. All right, until next time, take good care. Much love.
Thanks for tuning in.
To learn more about Joyous Justice LLC, our team, and how you can get involved with our community, check out the info in our show notes or find us at joyousjustice.com.
If you enjoyed this episode, show us some love.
Subscribe wherever you're listening.
Tell your people. Share what you're learning and how your leadership is evolving.
Stay humble,
But not too humble,
and keep going.
because the future is ours to co-create.